Hello, welcome to the Burn KC ScorchCast. I am your host, Alex Blackburn, coming at you this Sunday, July 9th of 2023. Welcome back. Thank you for joining. Got a fairly short show today, all things considered, compared to my normal show length. Just got to talk about some KU football news. Go over the Howard versus Daniels poll that I put out. That one's pretty interesting. We'll get to that later, though. Got some Royals stuffed. Just letting y'all know, in case you didn't. The MLB draft is happening as I speak right now, as I'm recording this. I actually have it on mute back there, just to see who the Royals pick. I'm not going to review who the Royals pick in this podcast, though. I might do that at a later date, though, just because I have no time to research the pick, and would like some time to do that. I haven't done as much research as I probably should have in regard to the MLB draft, considering the Royals now more than ever really need a great pick. Otherwise, this new front office and this new management is going to look really, really bad. But again, more on that later. Have some sporting news as well to talk about. Getting real close to playoffs time. It's coming faster than you think, and Sporting is fighting for a spot tooth and nail, and got some stuff to talk about with them, as well as the Kansas City Current. Got some Blues news, had a little tournament in Kansas City over the weekend that I'm going to talk about, as well as a few minor things that I want to mention, so hang around till the end. I said that there were minor things, but there are a few things that I just wanted to mention that I felt like didn't really warrant a whole time slot. Just, a mention and then me talking about it for a bit. So we'll go into that a little bit, but for now, let's get started. Enjoy the show. Let's go. In some college football news, KU introduced some new primary uniforms this past Friday. If you haven't taken a look at them, go take a look at them, because I can't show them for copyright purposes. So they look pretty cool, I must say. They look sharp. I personally probably wouldn't have gone with the block lettering across the chest here, but I would have gone with the circus font. I'm a huge fan of the circus font. Always have been, even on our basketball uniforms, on a KU's basketball uniforms. I'm not supposed to mention the fact that I am a KU alum, and kind of a KU homer at that. Sorry. But, yeah, no, I like the circus font a little more than I like the block font, but that's pretty much my only complaint in regards to it. I've seen some comparisons from a lot of people, mainly people that are, Kansas State fans, that say they look like SMU's uniforms. They look, like a cheap knockoff of the Nike uniforms that K-State does. And it's not accurate, but sure, whatever floats your boat. I've even seen comparisons to the Buffalo Bills uniforms, which, again, like, you can only do so much with the color palette, and KU has other alternative uniforms that they will be using. Um, do I think Kansas State has better football uniforms? Yeah. um, I- they look sharp. They do. They do. Um, but I think there's a lot of Kansas football uniforms out there as well that look just as good as some of the K State stuff. Though I forgive me, Jayhawk Nation. I think the Kansas State uniforms are marginally better. Marginally. Um, but I mean, like, the Big 12 is known for having just very sharp looking uniforms. I mean, just across the board. Um, in Kansas for a very long time was kind of the weakest link in regards to those uniforms. I mean, if you remember back in like 2011, they had those. Oh, it like makes me gag talking about it. Those black uniforms with the white helmet. Oh my god, those were awful. And like I'm hearing KU people talk about, well, we need a black uniform. We need a blackout uniform. No, we don't. No, Kansas does not. There's no black in the Kansas color palette. It's red, blue, white, yellow in that order. Well, probably blue, red, white, yellow, but you know what I mean. And the fact that people still want black uniforms even after those abominations came out is beyond me. And there's been some pretty bad ones since then. But I think these ones are a good way to finally, keep up with the rest of the Big 12 in regards to football, which is exactly what KU's trying to do with the new stadium, um, a new look football team, the recruiting, the facilities, etc. Just and it's paying dividends as we can see with KU having their first more than 3-win season since like 2010 or probably honestly earlier than that. And I see why Kansas State wants to poke fun and wants to, throw shade and everything like that. But at the same time, there's no real thing there other than, ha ha ha, you guys copied off of us. They didn't. And I think it's just kind of the battle of two in-state schools, and that's it. Just two in-state rivals, not liking each other, which is why there's so much shade being thrown at from both sides, from both sides. Speaking of that, I'm not going to talk about the stadium today. Um, that's kind of not necessarily a dead in the water topic, but it's not a topic that has as much traction as it did last week. But once we hear more news, then yeah, absolutely, I'll be talking about it more. Kansas State did get a new volleyball complex that was quote unquote paid for by revenue and private donors. There's paperwork out there that says otherwise, but sure. Um, sorry, the KU Hummer is coming out in me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I'll fully admit it on camera, guys. So you calling me a KU homer is not gonna do anything, frankly, to my image or my self confidence. I only know it, and I am completely without shame. Um, but moving on to the Howard versus Daniels debate that's been going on, the Will Howard versus Jalen Daniels debate. I wanted to join in on this, and if you read my article, you can see my opinion pretty cut and dry. Um, but let me reiterate it for you. I think as of now, Jalen Daniels has the better stats and the better efficiency, but against worse competition. And Jalen Daniels, he didn't have the team that Will Howard had last year. Am I saying that Will Howard's a bad quarterback that has just a good system around him? Not necessarily. I think he's a good quarterback. But I think Jalen Daniels had a much worse system and showed how important he is to KU's offense last year. Because if you remember correctly, he got injured during the TCU game, and that's kind of when the wheels fell off for KU. Jason Bean did fine. He did pretty well in some respects. And, the defense did what it could. But and it's going to get a lot better this year and next year. Just if you've been catching up with KU's recruiting, KU's recruited 4-star defensive players just throughout the defense. I mean, they've recruited 4-star secondary players, they've recruited 4-star linebackers, and they have 4-star defensive linemen now. So it's looking like it could potentially be a new era for Kansas defense this year next. And of course, they returned 8 out of their 11 starters on defense this year. But I digress. Let's get down to business in regard to the Howard versus Daniels debate. I've heard good points from either side, and I tried to mention the points from either side in my article. And frankly speaking, I think that Jalen Daniels is marginally better as far as athleticism goes and efficiency. I mean, the numbers do not lie. Um, that being said, Jalen Daniels, yeah, did go up against marginally worse competition than Will Howard did. Will Howard has more ranked wins. Will Howard has a better, I guess, RPI than Jalen Daniels does. Um, and that's what kind of Kansas State is holding on to in regards to defending Will Howard against Jalen Daniels. I think it comes down to this year and how this year plays out. If Kansas can do well, and Jalen Daniels is a big part of Kansas doing well, I think Jalen Daniels makes his case and solidifies his case for being the better quarterback. If that doesn't happen, the debate's still there, and especially if Will Howard and Kansas State do really well this year, then Howard probably takes that spot. So I really do think it just comes down to how this year goes, and especially how those first few games go. So we'll just have to see. It's a hot topic. I'm gonna show the polls here, and again, mind you, I do have a lot of KU fans in my fan base. A good portion of Kansas State fans as well, and Mizzou fans. A handful of them. They don't like me that much though. But hey, I do have a handful of Kansas State fans that watch my content and are fans of my content. Um, and let's just kind of show what exactly the uh, the numbers are for these polls. So let's just go to that. So as you can see, it's pretty resounding. It's pretty much in favor of Jalen Daniels. Um, and it's probably because I do cater more to Kansas fans. As a U alum myself. But you know what? Tim Fitzgerald caters more to Kansas State fans. Curtis Siebel caters more to Mizzou fans. Or Carrington Harrison, excuse me, caters more to Mizzou fans. I'm allowed to think what I want. It's my channel. I don't have to be unbiased because it's my blog. And I don't know. I've called myself a journalist in the past, and I don't really uphold the ethics of journalism per se in regards to the biases. But you know what? It's a blog. It's a freelance blog. Get over it. Don't be like, oh, why are you being biased? I thought you were a journalist. Carrington Harrison's a journalist too, folks. So is Tim Fitzgerald. Get it out of your head that sports journalism is not supposed to be biased because it is. If you've seen basically every commentator out there, even the biggest ones at like ESPN, they're all biased. So, yeah, I do cater more to KU fans, and these polls show it. So maybe the research is a little bit skewed. Polls say what the polls say, the stats say what they say. Barring colossal collapse by the Jayhawks this year, and they don't improve. Jalen Daniels either gets hurt or just starts suck. I think Jalen Daniels does prove his abilities at quarterback this year. So I don't know. Um, who knows? Maybe it's the opposite, but we'll just have to see. Like I said. Alrighty, onward to the Royals. Six loss win, or excuse me, I almost said 6 loss win streak. Believe it or not, folks, the Royals did not go on a win streak. They went on a loss streak. 6 losses in a row were snapped today against the Cleveland Guardians. They had a 4-1 victory today, their first in 6 games. Um, you know, that's kind of a positive, I guess. I mean, at this point. Good on the Royals for finally, coming up with the win after, 6 games of suckitude. Pretty par for the course. A reminder, by the way, that the Royals still have not won 3 games in a row. Um, do with that information what you will. I think they're like the only team too, other than maybe the A's, that haven't won 3 games in a row this year. So that's a problem. Um, and a good way to remedy that problem is to spend money on talent and to pick well in the draft. Well, one of those things can be done tonight, as the MLB draft is tonight. The question is, where do the Royals go with this draft? In years past, they've gone pitcher. Literally, like the past, 5 drafts, they've gone pitcher. I think it goes like what? Let me look up the Royals draft history, and I will show you exactly what exactly happened with the first round of the draft for the Royals. Give me just a sec. List of Kansas City Royals first round draft picks. Okay, scroll all the way down. Alrighty. So, out of all the picks for the past, we'll go 7 years. 2015, they pick a pitcher. 2016, they did not have a first round pick. 2017 was Nick Prado. 2018 was Brady Singer. 2018 again was Jackson Kowar. 2018 for a third time. They had 3 first round picks. I don't remember that in 2018. I guess they did, and we see how well that worked out. Yeah, Daniel Lynch was that third 2018 first round pick. 2019, Bobby Witt Jr. at shortstop. 2020, Asa Lacy. And then 2021, Frank Mazzicato, another pitcher. And then 2022 was Gavin Cross at outfield. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the 7 years. Wait, I'm sorry. Hold on. We got 1, 2, 3. Hold on. Let me count all these picks first before doing the math. We got One, two, three, four, five, six out of one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. 6 out of 9 of those picks were pitchers. So far, all 6 of those pitchers have not panned out. The most successful one thus far is probably Daniel Lynch. Maybe Brady Singer has an edge. I would say Daniel Lynch is the better pitcher. So, in regard to this year's draft, I would say probably don't pick a pitcher and like kind of focus on either developing your current pitching staff or, selling away the current pitching staff to get, something more solid and with higher ceiling. That's the big thing about the Royals is they need the draft for ceiling. And we talked about this in last ScorchCast. I mean, it's a lot of what the Royals do is they're picking based on MLB readiness. That's not exactly the way to go about it. There's a reason you have a minor league system, and there's a reason you have guys that should be able to develop players rather than just send them out there to play and kind of have this laissez-faire attitude about them, which currently is what the Royals have in regard to their on-the-field product, is this very like hands-off, laissez-faire approach. And we've seen how well it works out. And it's time for a change. Who knows when that change is going to come? I hope it's this year. And again, a great way to start that is this year's draft. I say they go catcher with this first round pick. And the reason I say that is Salvador Perez is getting old. Salvador Perez is the last piece of that 2015 World Series. It's going to be really, really sad when he retires or is traded. I highly doubt the latter happens. Don't worry. But the man's past his prime. He is. He's past his prime. The fact that he got an all-star selection over some of the talent that's out there is kind of insulting, in my opinion. I don't necessarily think he deserves it. I love the guy. He's a great dude, and has been incredibly productive for this Royals team in years past. But this year, he's just like the rest of the Royals. I mean, he's average at best. And for the All-Star game, you're kind of looking for above average. But yeah, Salvador Perez is on his last legs. I say the Royals go catcher in the first round and then work out position players. I think shortstop is a need. I love Bobby Witt Jr., but I think he's a bigger necessity elsewhere. And having him at shortstop is solid. He's a great player there, but he started out as a third baseman for a reason. In regard to pitching and improving pitching, I don't think the Royals need to spend an early round pick on a pitcher. I truly, honestly do not. I don't think there's that great of a pitching class this year. From what I saw, from the research that I did do, I really don't see a whole lot of pitchers that are all that great. So again, I think you focus on position players, and I think you focus on ceiling rather than MLB readiness, because most of these kids, they're barely out of college. At their oldest, they're barely out of college. So it's important to develop these guys, and it's important to not throw them into the fire like some of these guys that we've done. Brady Singer. But yeah, just please develop players. Please pick on ceiling, and please, for the love of God, don't pick a pitcher in the first round. But yeah, that's just my spiel on the Royals. take that as you will. Would love to know your thoughts about how you think this draft will go. Again, it is ongoing right now as I'm recording this, so probably by the time you're watching this, you're probably gonna know the results of the draft. So just let me know your thoughts as to how you think it went, because I certainly will, either in tomorrow's article or perhaps in a tweet or something else that may be mentioned at the end of this ScorchCast. Stay tuned. All right, moving on to Sporting Kansas City. Sporting Kansas City is currently tied for ninth with Vancouver in the MLB Western Conference standings. That's a good spot. I think this far into the season, with only a couple more months to go until playoffs, it's a good spot to be in. You're right where you want to be if you want to, go on a surge. And that's exactly what I think Sporting is going to end up doing, is just going on a surge to end the year on a high note and to propel them into the playoffs. This being said, a 2-2 draw against Houston is, a draw. Exactly what it is, a draw. And that's exactly what happened last night. Doesn't do any good, doesn't really do a whole lot of harm. You probably, if you were Sporting, would have liked to have picked up that win so you could propel yourselves over Vancouver, and, solidify that ninth place spot, especially going into these next two games that I'm going to be talking about. But you'll take the points in regards to a draw. Any day of the week. It's better than a loss. So, kind of neither good nor bad. Just okay. Again, a draw, a tie, indifferent. um, but these next two games are mightily important in regard to where you're gonna see yourself, where Sporting is gonna see themselves. Excuse me, jeez. Where Sporting is gonna see themselves in August. August doesn't have a whole lot of MLS games. September is really kind of the month to do that, last ditch effort type deal. And you want to set yourselves up to go into that, kind of that kind of August hiatus. You kind of want to set yourselves up to where you're going to be in good position for playoffs. And these next two games are going to go incredibly far in determining that. And these next two games are against Salt Lake and Austin. Two teams that are directly above Sporting in the playoff hunt. Mind you, Sporting is only one place out of playoffs. It's the top 8, and Sporting is 9th. Number 8 is Austin. Number 7 is Real Salt Lake. You see my point here. These next two games are going to be gigantic in determining where Sporting is going to end up from the August break. If they can pull out wins here, they set themselves up in the best position possible. If they pull draws, it's not a great position, but, it's better than the final choice, which is lose both of them. If they lose both of them, that's a huge confidence killer. That could be the season determining. So these next couple weeks are going to be huge for Sporting. And they just got to play the game that they've been playing, for the past couple of months. They have to play competitive soccer. They have to play defense. They have to maintain possession and capitalize on that maintained possession by scoring goals by putting the ball in the best chance to be scored. They have to capitalize off set pieces. They have not been capitalizing off of set pieces. It's been incredibly inconsistent. And if they can capitalize off set pieces, they can easily beat Salt Lake. They can easily beat Austin. They've already beaten Austin this year. Austin is not that great of a team. You're getting between, places 8 and I think it's 14 or 15 teams that are kind of on the same level. That kind of bottom echelon of teams in the MLS Western Conference are all kind of fighting for that final playoff spots or those final playoff spots. And Sporting Kansas City, I think, has one of the best chances to come out on top because they're hitting their stride at the right time. Austin has been wishy-washy. They've been, up and they've been down. Um, and you're hoping to catch them on a down week when you're sporting Kansas City here in the next 2 weeks. You got to get past Real Salt Lake first, though. And Real Salt Lake is a very, very similar club to Sporting Kansas City. Has had a lot of success, has made their town a soccer town, has had, great playoff success. They've just kind of had a down year this year. In the past couple of years, really. They've been kind of down. But I think in order to get past Real Salt Lake for Sporting Kansas City, you just got to play that game. You have to basically be perfect because Real Salt Lake's had your number for the past couple of years, and you can't let them have your number again. And in order to make playoffs, again, you have to play the game that you've been playing for the past 2 months. So that's just kind of my spiel on Sporting. They still have a great shot at playoffs, but these next 2 weeks are going to be big determinants as to what September is going to look like for Sporting. So that's just my spiel on that. Okay, onward to the Current. Current have finally dug their way out of last place. Last place falls to Angel City, I believe, or no, Gotham City. It's a cities in the NWSL. But yeah, Current are finally out of last, and they are only 1 point uh, behind Chicago to get even more out of last and out of that bottom echelon. They are 6 points, though, out of playoff contention. 6 points is 2 wins and just kind of an absolute collapse of the other teams that are ahead of them. They're gonna need some help. I think in regards to making the playoffs, they still have a shot. Don't get me wrong, but when you're this far into the season, you're gonna probably need some help. Um, when you're that low in the standings. A loss versus Louisville yesterday or on Friday, excuse me, stinks. That is not a loss you can take. There's not really a whole lot of losses you can take if you're the Kansas City Current right now. Playoffs are only a couple months away, and the NWSL is a little bit more competitive. Well, in terms of teams ahead of you doing better than teams than your team. It matters more, I should say, if the teams ahead of you are winning and are having success while you're having success, of course. It's not a keeping up with the Joneses type of deal. It's a win to survive type of deal. And in the case of the Kansas City Current, that's easier said than done. You first have to win to survive. Secondly, you have to have people above you lose and lose often in the NWSL. Losses sting more in the NWSL than they do in the MLS. And because there's less teams. Um, but when you're only putting 1 to 2 points on the board every game, even though you control possession, even though your offense is made up of some of the best players in the NWSL, there's a problem. The main problem is defense. Defense is still just a huge issue for the Kansas City Current. I mean, it's really bad at this point. 2 points will take, you know, the opposing team only putting up 2 points at this point. Just way too many goals conceded. And a lot of people are blaming Eddie Franch and the rest of the goalkeepers. That's completely irrational. It's the defense. I mean, I've watched this current team. It's the defense. It's the fact that they're getting so many good chances on goal and just not capitalizing. It's the fact that said set pieces come up completely empty. It's very similar to a Sporting situation, only a lot worse. Sporting at least has a serviceable defense. It's not the best defense in the whole wide world, but it's serviceable. The Current's defense needs help, and he needs help bad. How you remedy that through the draft and through trading away offensive assets, because this current team does have assets on offense that could find new homes by the end of this year, um, in search for a good defensive lineup, because that's what the current needs right now. If the current has any shot at making playoffs, they need to bolster that defense and they need to improve on set pieces. Um, but just overall, it's not looking good for the current, but it's certainly not an impossibility that they make the playoffs. They'll need to go on a run, like I've said plenty of times before. And this loss versus Louisville certainly doesn't help things, but they're still in a solid enough position to where the playoffs are not a complete impossibility. So that's good. Um, yeah, just the brightest spot here is the fact that they're no longer in last. We're winning games now. Yeah, they're gonna hit a skid or two along the way, but they're at least winning games now and not going on historic loss streaks. Kind of a far cry from last year's team, but potentially could turn into last year's team at the drop of a hat. So we can only hold out hope for that. Some Blues news for you now. The Blues had their Heart of America Sevens tournament this past weekend, or excuse me, Heartland Sevens tournament this past weekend. And it was out at Heritage Park, out in Olathe. Very nice spot, I must say. It's a big park. Let's just say that. Um, but it was a great time. We had a lot of great teams out there, a lot of great competition. The Arkansas Griffins ended up winning the men's bracket, and the Kansas City Junior Blues Academy ended up winning the high school bracket. Unfortunately, we couldn't have a women's one. There was not enough interest from teams around the area. So that was unfortunate, but still turned out to be a great tournament nonetheless. The Blues ended up placing fourth in that tournament, and the qualifying side ended up placing 12th in Chicago this past weekend, which, unfortunate result, but a learning experience for sure against some really, really, really good teams. So overall, not too bad. Can't say that it was the optimal result for the Blues, but it was still a very fun tournament to run and a very fun tournament to execute. We had a great time. I know that from everybody that I talked to, they said it was a pretty well ran tournament. Tournament that they had a lot of fun at. That was really competitive. Had a lot of great competition at all levels. I mean, I was watching some of the high school games, and it was super fun to watch these kids play. To see the future of rugby in the area, and then of course, the men's games. Plenty of great competition. Special thanks to the Arkansas Griffins for bringing up two sides, for KCRC for bringing two sides, for us for bringing two sides, and just um, there was a team from Warrensburg there, Dub Club. They did pretty well. And just overall, it was a very fun social tournament to kind of hang out at, spend some good quality time. You couldn't have asked for better weather, too. I mean, seriously, it was super nice out. And, great, great help. Out there as well from my girlfriend, from the AC Blues exec board, from guys that weren't even part of seven season, aren't even part of seven season. Um, so overall, just a really great time. So hats off to everyone that helped make that tournament go and helped make that tournament competitive. So looking forward to next year. Speaking of upcoming stuff, though, for the Blues, the golf tournament is going to be August 5th out at Shamrock Hills. We still need sponsors for said golf tournament as well as golfers. It sells out pretty quick. So if you can get on board and get in there in regard to getting signed up for this golf tournament, foursomes are accepted. Make sure you get your foursome in. I think it's 150 a person if you're doing a foursome. So again, sells out real quick. It's a great time. And if you're looking to sponsor that, please contact me or Matthew Panama Hoover, the president of the Kansas City Blues. And not only that, the fall season is coming up. First practice is August 1st for the fall season. So it's coming up real quick. That will be the Blues competitive season. So you'll be seeing some divisional play, top level rugby played in the United States as well. Um, in that league, in that competitive bracket. So just yeah, if you can make it out there, go make it out there. It's a lot of fun. Just to watch the Blues play, you get to see high level rugby competition as well. And just to get, even if you don't know a whole lot about the sport, I highly suggest going out and just having a great time. I mean, we really do um, put on a good show over here at the Blues. So, 15 season right around the corner. Golf tournament also right around the corner. And seven season is just wrapping up. I believe the social side only has the Show Me games left to play out in Columbia. Not this coming weekend, but next coming weekend. Um, and just overall, yeah, just seven seasons wrapping up, 15 seasons right around the corner. So stay tuned. In some minor news, Chiefs training camp is coming up. This, I believe yeah, 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks from now. Um, for those that have been keeping up with Chiefs news, specifically the Chris Jones extension news, you know that the start of training camp is a pretty important date. The start of training camp is the signifier of when the Chiefs front office themselves said the Chris Jones extension would be done. The Chiefs have put 2 weeks as the timetable for doing that. That's coming up real quick. Um, And if they can't get a Chris Jones extension done, there's going to be a lot of ticked off Chiefs fans, and I'm sure Chris Jones will be ticked off as well. Um, you gotta get the one of the best defensive players in the NFL right now a sturdy contract. And the Chiefs have plenty of the ability to do that. And before we go talking about DeAndre Hopkins news again, because I guess he's not fully out of the news yet, and he's not, fully out off the Chiefs' radar yet for I have no idea what reason. Yeah, again, he's icing on the cake. He's not a necessity. But since he's in the topics again, get a Chris Jones extension done first. Please, 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 please. Get a Chris Jones extension done first. Uh, no ifs, ands, or buts. Chris Jones extension first. In college basketball news, numbers were announced for the newcomers for the local teams. Kansas and I believe Missouri and K State, all three announced numbers for their new coming players. Um, Now, transfer portal season is still not over yet. There's still time for teams to add players, but rosters are looking more set by the day. And excuse me. And by August, rosters should be set. Kansas, I think, is in a really good spot. I think Kansas has all but solidified their roster. Mizzou probably could use a couple more guys, and K State could probably use a couple more guys. But I think Kansas is they're already preseason number one. I mean, and I think they're already title contenders with the roster that they have right now. So solid gets, and we got to see what numbers they're going to be wearing. So pretty cool. And then finally, I did want to mention, since it is Big 12 news, the Bob Huggins situation. Good Lord, that looks like a mess. So in case you haven't been keeping up, Bob Huggins was charged with the DUI, I think like 2 weeks back, and was asked to resign, or potentially volunteered to resign. Who even knows what the truth is at this point in regards to that situation? But Bob Huggins did come out and say that West Virginia forced him to resign, and has been on record in saying that, the allegations that he willingly resigned and that he wanted to, take some time away from the West Virginia basketball program are completely false, and that, West Virginia forced him to resign because they didn't want to deal with the litigation in regards to his DUI arrest. Um, God only knows what the truth is, but whether you like Huggy Bear or not, this could turn out to be really, really, really bad for West Virginia, for their athletics program in general, depending on how they handle this. So we'll see how that's handled. But like I said, it's in the Big 12. I know it's not Kansas, K State, and Mizzou, but it's in the Big 12, so it matters to two out of those three schools. It used to be three, but we don't talk about that whole situation. That happened 10 years ago. Why would we talk about it? Except for the fact that, conference changes are still going on and are basically fluid at this point. But anyway, that's our show. Thank you very much for joining. Um, I hope you enjoyed this show. I hope you enjoy my articles. I hope you enjoy seeing my beautiful face every Sunday, or sometimes Mondays or Tuesdays or Wednesdays, because I have a very busy schedule. But I try to put these out on Sundays any day that I can. Um, Thank you so much for bearing with me as well, and for just being a loyal listener and a loyal reader. So, I am Alex Blackburn. This has been the Burn KC, signing off for the night. Have a great night. Have a great week. And I'll see you next Sunday. This is the Burn KC, signing off.